And we're live.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Building Your Wellness Brand Within Your Community. I'm Dr. Alan Weinstein with my co-host, Dr. Randi Ross. Today's episode is brought to you by Epic Consulting, making sure your electronic presence is all it needs to be, and Community Wellness Day. Every great opportunity begins with the first step. Take that step with Community Wellness Day and the system, the only official marketing program of healthcare professionals everywhere, and the VIP app, the only applications that allow you to bring your live hangouts just like this one to everyone's iPhone, Android device, and desktop. Our apps are so beautiful, people are going to want to lick them. Today, guess what? Just released Google in 10 minutes. Here's a complete step-by-step program for all things Google for your business. Just go to tinyurl.com/Google in 10 and check that out. It's really an exciting program. Today's show, Community Health Program, is an interview with Steve Hurricane Weiss. And Steve Hurricane Weiss, if you don't already know who he is, and most people do, he actually started his first company at age 14. He was the top sales rep while in college, and in 2005 joined CareChoice, growing annual revenues from $750,000 to nearly $5 million in just 4 short years. 2012, Steve founded and became the president of Hurricane Marketing Enterprises. Steve Hurricane Weiss, Hurricane Marketing Enterprises. Makes perfect sense. He is a motivational speaker, business seminar leader, and consultant coach to clients across the country. Dr. Randi, I'll turn it over to you, and then you could bring Steve right on.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Let me just take a quick little minute here to mention those of you that are interested in moving forward with our relationship marketing program, Community Wellness Day. Reach out because we are looking for those that are looking to be successful. So we're interested in talking with you if you're looking to move your business to the next level. Well, today's guest is really exciting for me. Steve and I actually met on LinkedIn, which is really funny because we've had a couple of guests, people that I've developed these great relationships with on LinkedIn, and the funny thing is I hardly ever go on LinkedIn, so go figure. That's a lesson for me. I need to be on there a little bit more. And it wound up that we're pretty much neighbors. We're a couple of towns away, and we met with Steve. My first impression of Steve, and you're all going to know what I'm talking about, every now and then you meet someone that just has this amazing energy. Like when you're around them, you just get happy and you just feel great and you want to work and you want to do everything you're supposed to do and get it done. He's just got this really commanding presence, and I know when I meet with him, I can listen to everything that he says, and it's been really fun having an opportunity over, I guess, close to the last year, getting a chance to know Steve and working on some projects. So we said, you know what? Got to have him on as a guest. He's a young guy. He's really dynamic. I mean, this is the kind of guy that's really going places, and he has very quick success models, and that's what we're all looking for. So we wanted to have him on here. To me, anyone that can grow, a company upwards of $5 million in 4 short years while they're in college, that's someone I want to pick their brain a little bit. So, Hurricane, welcome, welcome, welcome to our hangout.
Thank you so much for having me. And now I have great expectations I have to live up to. That was a wonderful introduction. Thank you.
I'm confident that you'll rise to the occasion. So one of the first things, Steve, that we always like to talk about, and I know you have some specific ways that you do things, but everything that we do and that we teach, whether it's virtual or in person, it really revolves around how relationships are such an integral part of building a business. And I always say, even though most of our listeners are probably somewhere within the healthcare form, that it really doesn't matter if you're, a doctor or a dentist, or, if you're a realtor, or if you're, a business person like yourself, that the thing that's timeless is really that, relationships position you within your community as a way to meet people and stand out and build your credibility. Just kind of talk to that a little bit about your feelings as a business person and a really successful salesman, why you think that's important.
Well, if it's funny that you asked me this question because literally from 10 o'clock until 12 o'clock this morning, I was speaking to a client of mine in New York City about this exact thing, and it all goes back to Napoleon Hill, 1920s, 1930s, the author of Think and Grow Rich, and the father of motivational speaking and positive thinking, and everything comes down to people work with who they know, like, and trust. It is as simple as that. I mean, if you think about a business or a product or even a movie, you know, if you saw a movie and you thought it was a really, really good movie, and when you see your friends, this movie comes up, you're going to recommend go see the movie. Now, if your friends know that you, who's their friend or their family member or whatever, recommended the movie, they are probably 10 times more likely to see that movie than if they didn't know that you had thought the movie was good. Or the opposite. If they were thinking about seeing the movie and you said it was a terrible movie, they're probably not going to go see it or wait till it comes out on Netflix or something like that. So everything all comes down to know, like, and trust in business, in life in general.
Well, I think that's so important, and one of the things that we always talk about that I think falls short today because we live in this instant, everything's so instant today, you know, instant information, instant communication, that we don't understand that this element of business is something you have to have a little bit of patience about. I always tell someone, you don't go to one meeting with someone, you know, and hit the ball out of the park. Does it happen sometimes? Yeah, and those are great moments in business careers, but mostly that's not the way it is. It's a, kind of stay the pace type of situation. And I'm sure as a coach that you find that often with people. Talk a little bit about what you say to people to get them to not get discouraged if, the first meeting with someone that they think is a great connection for them maybe doesn't quite go the way that they would like to.
Well, and it is funny that you mentioned that too, because I also find that with the whole instantaneous, expecting things and results immediately, we're in an instantaneous society. We also have this dependency on technology where it's like, well, I emailed the person and they haven't emailed me back. Now what do I do? And it's like, all right, you go see them, you pick up a phone and you call them. That human interaction is always, always going to be there in business, no matter what level it is. Now, to what you were saying, Randy, yeah, it on average, a lot of people don't realize this. To get referrals, to start to build a relationship where they actually trust you, even to build a relationship where they will remember you to be able to make a recommendation or a referral to you or whatever the case is, it's going to take 8 to 12 visits or 8 to 12 connections or conversations before that person starts to think of you whenever the opportunity arises for business or for the connection to be established or whatever. Now, if it's face-to-face referral marketing, going to chamber events, going to networking events, going to community events like Community Wellness Day and so on, if you meet somebody once or twice, nothing's going to really happen to it. And unfortunately, with what you just said, a lot of people give up after 3 to 5 visits, but they don't realize it's going to take 8 to 12. One of the things that I teach people to do is at the end of every meeting, at the end of every phone conversation or face-to-face meeting or coffee or at a networking event or whatever the case may be, I teach people to pull out their cell phone, all right? On your cell phone, we all have your calendar app, right? And there's your calendar, and it tells you everything that you got going on in the next couple of days or the next couple of weeks or whatever, and you book a meeting from a meeting. You book a time or a time to get together or an appointment to follow up and continue to develop this relationship so that if you're doing this every week or every 2 weeks with somebody and knowing it takes 8 to 12 times before it starts to click, you can quickly build a referring, business growing, developing relationship in 8 to 12 weeks if you're doing this consistently versus some people who just take several years to get the relationship going. So at the end of every meeting I have with somebody, always set your follow-up, your next step, or your next reason to gather, to get together to continue to develop that trust relationship.
Do you find that sometimes people aren't sure what they should, what the next meeting should be about? In other words, if you and I met and then we were using this strategy, do you think that sometimes people are a little confused as to if I'm like, okay, Steve, I have my calendar out, let's plan, to get together again in 2 or 3 weeks. You look at your calendar, and most people are going to say, okay, what's our agenda? Do you think that people need to go into a meeting with an agenda in their head for a follow-up meeting so they're not caught a little bit flat-footed?
Absolutely. You always want to make sure that you have your agenda as to what am I trying to accomplish with this meeting. Is this a potential customer? Is this somebody who could refer me business? Is this somebody that I would consider a quote-unquote power partner? And maybe we'll talk about power partners in a little bit. Somebody who goes to the same places or can get business from the same places that I can get business from, but we don't compete with one another. That's a power partner. So before I go in, I always want to make sure I qualify what is my reason for getting together with this person. Now, if it's a situation where they can refer me or I can get something from them, I always try to keep the conversation about the other person, their business, what their likes are. Actively listen, control the conversation, gauge it in a way that I'm getting the information I need to further qualify, what we can do together. And then once I determine who it is, I always want to have some kind of a game plan. So, for example, if you're somebody who goes to referral sources that I go to, if you're in a position where we can work together to get business that can grow both of our organizations, then I'm going to talk about possibly doing an event together, like a community wellness day, or I'm going to talk about possibly co-marketing together, or sharing advertising costs, or advertising space, or whatever the case may be. I'm planting seeds so that when they say, that sounds like a great idea, that sounds fantastic, what's the next step? Well, the next step is you do this, and I do this, and then we get together in a week, and we meet up and we go over, what have we accomplished since the last time we've spoken. It's always a collaboration of some type. For me personally, with the healthcare business that I had, it was a private duty home care non-medical company. My biggest referral sources were hospitals, skilled nursing facilities, rehabs, assisted living communities, and so on. So every time I went into one of those places, I knew, even though I'm trying to get business from them, they are also a business too, and they are trying to grow their business. So I would come in and say, listen, I have a vested interest in working with you, Randy. You can refer me business, and I want business. But because I want business from you, and you can send me business, I also have a vested interest in making sure you have as many potential referrals for me as possible. So indirectly, I want to make sure you are successful. So here's some ideas on things that I can do with you to collaborate to help grow your organization. And all I ask is when you have somebody who has a need for me, you send them my way when they go home, which they're always like, yeah, of course, absolutely. What did you have in mind? And that's when I start talking about doing events, CEU events, community events, inviting people to the facility, or whatever the case may be. You always find that angle, and it does make sense. If you're going to refer me business, I want to make sure you have as much business as possible to send my way. So theoretically, if you can feed me helping you helps me as well. So that's what's in it for both of us. But I explain that upfront and honest to the admissions marketing person, whoever the face of the company is representing the company out there in the community. And then we talk about doing things together, and then we start setting things on the calendar. So I have months of follow-up from that initial meeting.
Well, this is my favorite line in conjunction to what you're saying, and I say it so much that my daughter gets nauseous. Preparation meets opportunity. So really, a lot of what you're saying, I also mimic with people we work with. So it's good to hear that great minds think alike. But
it works.
Yeah, but it's it's so much different today. You're quite a bit younger than me, but when I first started doing this, we didn't have the internet. I know that sounds crazy to a lot of people listening. So when you went out to meet with someone, it was a lot of work to research. You actually had to ask people to find out about them. You read the paper. There was different ways. Whereas today, there's really no excuse not to be almost overly prepared when you go into a meeting to know about that person. If it's if it's more of a personal thing, to know about their business. To have really studied this, because the worst thing that I've found, and it's happened to even me a few times, is you go into a meeting with an agenda like Steve was just describing, and the meeting goes in a whole nother direction that you're not quite prepared for, But, as you get enough experienced or mature enough in business, you learn how to roll with that. And interestingly enough, sometimes you find bigger business opportunities when, the meeting goes in a whole other direction that you weren't prepared for. But what do you think the three biggest obstacles are that hold people back from being successful at going out and, really looking for business the way you just described, going and meeting with people and finding that person that can be, a kind of a business partner with you, or use the word power partners, and being able to benefit each other mutually? What do you think holds people back? Because you work with a lot of people. Sure, many of them are successful, and I'm sure some of them have a long way to go. The ones that kind of can't get out of their own way, what do you think the three biggest obstacles are?
And it is funny you said, getting out of their own way, because I'd say the biggest issue is them themselves, whether it's a mindset, it's an attitude, or it's well, if I'm not here at my office, I'm going to miss the phone call that comes in, or I need to make sure that I have all my I's dotted and my T's crossed and everything else or whatever. Well, and it's so funny because just at 9 o'clock this morning, I was talking to all of my coaches, my team that works for me, and we were talking about one of our clients in Kentucky who's in this exact situation. He's so concerned with his operation and making sure that everything is going well. He has 5 clients, all right? Now, I don't care what business you're in, 5 clients is not a big business, okay? So he tells me he has 5 clients. He's on the phone with one of my coaches and saying he has 5 clients, and he can't go marketing because he might miss a phone call or something else or whatever, and all these excuses to why he can't get out there. And I'm like, you have 5 clients. You should have 100 clients. That's your problem. You're holding yourself back because you're either afraid to go out there, which I'd say is probably number one. What do I have to offer someone else? When I get in front of somebody, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? Now, we don't have enough time in the day for me to go over all of that, but really, it always has to come back to what's in it for the other person. What can I do for them? So like the example that I just said earlier, I want referrals from you. That's what's in it for me. But because I want referrals from you, I want to make sure you have as much business as possible. So I'm willing to basically give you extra hands, extra financial resources to split advertising costs or whatever to help grow your business, and you send those referrals to me as they come in because I'm helping you grow. So it's kind of like a win-win for everybody, and people like that. So that's it. If we're going in there and your strategy is, I'm here to help you because I know if I help you, you're able to help me. So that's kind of like the first thing I'd say is going in there, have that mindset of I'm here to help you and learn about you and help you grow in order to help me grow. It's a very give in order to receive mindset. The second thing I'd say is make a schedule. All right, there are so many things that we as business owners can do that don't have to be done during prime marketing time. All right, so what's prime marketing time? For the most part, it's Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, bank hours, business hours. That's prime marketing time. You can read resumes after hours. You can pay bills after hours. You can follow up on emails after hours. But you can only get out there and make face-to-face contacts with people during business hours, or Skype or whatever during business hours. It's very difficult to do stuff afterwards. So if you're going to spend your time wisely, but make sure that you're doing only things that can get done during business hours. Other things that you're doing during business hours that you can do later on, do that later on. That's how you grow your business. And then finally, the last thing I'd say, besides making a schedule for yourself, I always tell people, if you have 40 hours of business hours time to market 20 hours a week, and then the other 20 hours be in your office and do the other things you have to do. But spend half your week in the field. The other thing that you have to be able to do that I'd say that holds us back is, I said fear, I said the schedule, and then I'd probably say is, where do I go? I'm not even sure where to go. And there are a lot of people out there that kind of just shoot blindly in the dark, hoping to hit something and make the kill, and they're just going all over the place. You have to have a strategy. You have to have a thought process. This is work smarter, not harder. So if I want to, I determine, okay, what are the best places to refer me business? Who are the best people I can connect with to grow my business quickly? Who are those people? I can do research online and find out where other people who are in my shoes go for business in other markets. You can even go as far as to call people. I'll never forget one of my friends, Christine Anderson, who owns an ice cream parlor in Cranberry, New Jersey. When she got started, she actually went to other ice cream parlors in the county, but were out of her area that she would never compete with. And she sat down and she picked their brain. What are things I should know? What are things that you've done that were successful for growing your business? And she asked, and every one of them was like, this is the smartest thing ever. And they were so open, and they said, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that, blah, blah, blah. They gave her all this great information. She went back, took it, and then she made a plan to go out there and execute all the things that everybody else did that was successful while avoiding the things that were time waste. That's a great opportunity. So if I'm a chiropractor, right? I'll just use that as an example. I would go to other chiropractors out of my service area and ask them, how do you drum up business? Where do you go? Do you get referrals? What are you doing that works? What can I do? Point me in the right direction. People always have an opinion. They always want to help that other person out. You're the new person getting started. Someone help them. Don't be afraid to call on somebody else if you're new to it, or even if you're not new to as a business owner, but you're new to this type of marketing and growing your business, grassroots guerrilla marketing. If you're new to it, go ask people who are successful at it for their advice on where to go for business and then what they did to get successful, and you can emulate that yourself. So I kind of gave you like 3 or 4 different answers to that last one, but really it's qualify, know where to go, and then pound the pavement and get in there and do what you have to do to get in front of them.
And I'm going to kind of add a little element because of what we do to what Steve said about, one of the things that we teach with Community Wellness Day is, going out to people that may even be outside of your, I'll call it, your similar business model. When you're in a community, there are so many people that are vested in you being successful in that community. Like my favorite that most people have a huge disconnect with are politicians. If you go as a new business owner, even this young lady you were talking about is an ice cream parlor owner, and you met with your local mayor or something, you say, hey, you know what, I'm a new business entity in the community. I would love your help, some suggestions, maybe places I should go, people I should talk to, any way that I can help support any, programs or anything you have going on. I'd love to be a part of that. Sometimes going to the people that it's really important for your community to succeed and asking for help, which is kind of mirrors what Steve was just saying, people want to help. They want you to be successful. No one in a community wants you to fail. Nobody wants empty storefronts. Nobody wants bankruptcies. Nobody wants foreclosed buildings. Nobody wants that in any community. So, on top of what Steve was saying, go to people who are in your same or similar profession outside of the scope of no competition. I'm telling you, go to those people of what I always refer to as the upper inner circle, people of power and influence in your community, or even just the other business owners. And when you introduce yourself, say, I'd love some suggestions. What have you found that's a successful way to do business in this community? And I see Dr. Allen brought himself back. That means he's got something to say.
Yeah, great stuff so far, Steve. I have a couple of questions for you, and one that we don't address a lot, and I think this is a great question for you to answer is what about knowing when to walk away? I think one of the big mistakes that people make is they assume that everyone is a right partner for them if they meet somebody, that this is, and a lot of times they are not the right partner, and the people don't do the homework, and they don't realize that's a waste of time, and or that it's never going to go anywhere. So talk a little bit about that type of circumstance for people.
That's a great question, Dr. Allen. Go, Steve.
Yeah, that is a great question. And it's funny you say that because that's something that I get all the time where someone says, I got this great relationship with so-and-so and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, so what are you doing together? Oh, we're not doing anything. Have you gone co-marketing together? Have you referring each other? No. And I'm like, what's their favorite color? I don't know. That's not a great relationship. know. But I guess the way I would answer that question is really I have a timeline. All right, and I also have a timetable as to what I'm trying to accomplish, what I'm trying to do, and what I'm looking to do with you. So if this is a power partner per se, all those things I mentioned, the co-marketing, the advertising costs, referring each other, all of those things, as I meet with the person on this one-on-one cup of coffee or lunch, and I'm discussing all these things with them, I'm going to start putting stuff on the calendar. The next time I follow up with them, say 2 weeks later, they should have accomplished a certain number of things in that 2 weeks' time, just as I should have. If I come back to that meeting and they haven't accomplished it, I'm getting ready to probably push that person to the side, unless there was a really good excuse. If it happens a second time, they're really kind of off my radar. I'll give you an example. I used to run a networking group called Senior Connections, and it was for healthcare professionals. Now, every rehab center and assisted living facility that was referring me business would host my meeting. And because my meeting was so popular, I would book it about 3-4 months in advance. So I would walk into places that were relatively new to me, explain the process, talk about co-marketing and all these other things, and then say, would you like to host my meeting? I'll never forget there was an assisted living in Marlboro, New Jersey that was supposed to host it. The calendar for like 4 months away. In the time between the date we met and the event, I was supposed to have an in-service with her staff. She was supposed to have an in-service with my staff. We were supposed to do some co-marketing and everything else. And every time I kept calling her and emailing her, or I would stop by and see her, I kept getting the runaround. And I would get the runaround, and I'd get the runaround, and then get the runaround for about a month and a half. So we're talking about 6 weeks or so I got runaround. And then I said, okay, well, I'm going to take the event that I gave you. That's my event, my biggest thing I can do for you. And I'm going to give it to somebody else who wants to work with me. So I booked it in another facility. Well, when the time came for me to start promoting her event, I promoted the event, and it was located somewhere else. She emails me and calls me up, and she's like, Steve, I thought I was hosting this event. And I said, I won't say the name, I thought I was supposed to be getting an in-service with you. I thought we were supposed to do this. I thought we were supposed to do that. This is for people who want to work with me. I've been coming by your building. I've talked about doing all this stuff with you, and you haven't followed up on anything. You haven't done your part of it. So if you want to host the meeting, sure, you can host it. We'll put you on a calendar for several months out, but you have to hold up your end of the bargain here, and we have to get together. And it took a little bit of time. It took about 6 months. She was kind of mad at first, but then all of a sudden she came back around, did everything that she was supposed to do for her end of the partnership and the relationship, and of course I gave her the meeting and we collaborated on other things and everything else. So, don't let people take advantage of you. You have to plan stuff, and it is a two-way street. I'm willing to give you 100% of effort on my end, but I want to make sure that you're giving me that effort in return. If they're not, you move forward, because there's plenty of fish in the sea.
Well, that is really important. Dr. Allen, I'm going to let you jump in here, but I think we could almost do a hangout on how to gently sever business relationships that are really just dragging you down and, adding negativity to your life.
Yeah, I don't know how familiar you are with the book by Oren Klaff. It's really talks about how sometimes you get in a circumstance where you have an appointment with somebody, you get to their office, and you all of a sudden get so-and-so was not able to make the meeting, so his assistant is going to meet with you. And his book talks about, and it's a great book, talks about how do you handle those situations. Do you decide that you're going to stay and meet with somebody, or do you show your power at that point and you say, look, let's reschedule because I really want to sit down with John because what I have he needs to really know about, and I'd rather make sure that we do, or something of that order. So those circumstances, I think, come up also, and there are issues that we all need to deal with. Now, I have one question that might a little bit come from left field here, but I want to make sure I get this question in before the show ends, and that is...
Always one.
Oh, what's that?
There's always one from left
There's
field.
always one. So you call yourself Steve the Hurricane. And so the first thing for me is when I first hear your name, I say, not everyone can get away with calling themselves Steve the Hurricane. So I want to ask why you chose to do that, number one. Number two, do you find it's always helpful? Does it ever work against you? Or, talk a little bit about that. It's easy to remember, but I'm always questioning. I question, is it professional for other people, or it works for you because of who you are, your circumstance? So talk a little bit about that.
Well, that's a very, very good question. And it's actually a common question because a lot of people say, did you don yourself Steve the Hurricane? And the answer is no, I did not. It's actually a nickname my old business partner Brian gave me in 2006. So after about 6 months of working for Brian, because originally with that business that I took from $750,000 to $5 million a year, when I started, I was an employee. In 2009, I became part owner of that company, but 6 months after I started, we were blowing up. His phone was ringing off the hook with the things that I was doing and the connections, and he basically gave me this all-inclusive incentive for growing the business, and I was like, wow. I was like, I'm going to be a force of nature out there, and he goes, I want you to be the Hurricane, and that's when he gave me the nickname. Now, this is something I call risk being the fool. Risk being the fool is a term I learned when I was in college, working at Vector Marketing. It was one of the top district or division managers who came on stage, and he did an hour-long presentation about how if everybody is leaning to the left, you want to lean to the right. If everybody's going up, you have to go down, or whatever the case may be. You have to be able to stand out from the crowd. And so risk being the fool, i.e., in this case, Steve the Hurricane, is a very bold statement. Like you said, it's not forgettable. Now, is it risky? Yeah, of course, because it's like, well, this guy he's full of himself. He's Steve the Hurricane or whatever. But as soon as people hear it, they're going to quickly make an opinion, but then they say, I'm going to give this guy 30 seconds or give him a minute to see what he has to say. Or when I speak at conferences or conventions, it's like I got 1 hour. Within 5 minutes, if I'm not winning that audience over, they're like, this guy is crap. But as soon as I open my mouth, they're like, oh, he is the Hurricane. Okay, that makes sense or whatever. And then the other thing you have to remember, too, is, you're never going to win everybody over. Are there people who are turned off by it? Absolutely. But what I find, it's about 10%. I will gladly have a 90% approval rating, gladly have a 90%, people who follow the things that I say, contact me for services, want me speaking to their franchise systems and their business or working with their people. I gladly have that 90% approval rating and take a 10% because you're never going to win everybody over anyway. It's never going to be 100%. Last week I threw out a video. I do online videos. And I put out a video about the importance of Halloween marketing, right? Thousands of people watched this video. And there was this one person who actually, I know the person very, very well. And he even said, I love Steve's stuff. I've been following it for years or whatever, but I got to disagree. Halloween marketing in costume, which is what I would suggest doing, is the most unprofessional thing. I would never do that, yada, yada, whatever. And I'm like, and I didn't even respond to it, but my employee who responded to it, who posted it, was like, well, it's not for everybody, yada, yada, whatever. And I said, no, it's not for everyone. And I said, he's that 10% who doesn't like it. The other 90% of people thought it was fantastic. They went marketing in costume, and they got referrals, and they got business, and their phones are ringing off the hook this week. So, to each his own. You don't have to do what everybody else is doing, but you want to take those, I call them calculated risks, because it is a calculated risk, but it usually points out giving the reward that we want.
Well, and I've learned from working with Dr. Allen for so many years that he actually claims that, excuse my language, if you're not pissing someone off, you're probably not getting effective marketing out there. So you always got to be ruffling a few feathers. And I have to, for those of you that maybe also can't see this because you're not, in the same room with Steve, it also works for Steve. He's not a 5'2" woman like myself. He's a 6 foot plus, big guy. So it kind of fits the visual as well when he's standing on stage. That might not work for everyone, but for him, it's a total fit. It works really well.
I had a guy who asked me if I was a wrestler.
I could see that. I could see a wrestler, a boxer, any of those things, and they'd think that was like your stage name, right?
I think one of the things that you see now, especially, there are so many people from all walks of life that have achieved great success, that no longer can you judge somebody by what they look like, what their name is, even the way they dress, because they literally could be the owner of a $50 million tech company and be 23 years old. And literally, you have to really, the game has really changed at this point. You really need to just be open, take everyone at face value, and be open to find out who they are rather than make that judgment. I think the old school way is, oh, Steve the Hurricane, what's this hurricane nonsense, man? I don't want to meet with, you know what I mean? Everyone now, I think, is much more open to, hey, this guy is a good chance his name's Hurricane because he's like, you know, like you say, he's just blowing everything out of the water. So that's how we got, you know, so a good point. But I had to ask the question because I'm sure there are other people, like you say, people ask that question all the time.
Especially when I'm at the conferences, they want to put down, you know, Steve Weiss is speaking, and Steve the Hurricane is actually trademarked. I'm the only Steve the Hurricane in the world. And when I speak at these conferences, before I speak and I get the agenda and it says Steve Weiss, I say, "Who's Steve Weiss?" And they're like, "That's you." I was like, "No, I'm Steve the Hurricane." Steve Weiss is married to Susan Weiss, father of 3. I am not. That's not the person you want on stage. You want Steve the Hurricane. Nobody knows who Steve Weiss is. Everybody knows who Steve the Hurricane is.
All right, Steve, we're going to give you about 60 seconds here to kind of tie up a message that you have before we end our show today. So go ahead, my friend. You got the floor.
60 seconds. All right. What I would just say in closing is this. You have to get out there. You have to make connections. You have to make contacts. Face-to-face works. As a matter of fact, with all the technology and the internet and the advertising and the smartphones and the tablets and the way TV is and everything else or whatever, people are so inundated with sales and marketing and pitches that the good old-fashioned grassroots marketing is even more effective now than it was 20, 30 years ago before the technology, because everybody's trying to rely on the latest thing, and they're forgetting the thing that works the best is know, like, and trust. There is nothing greater, no better form of advertising than word of mouth, folks. Recommendations, I don't care what business you're in. If somebody recommends something to you, you're most likely to follow through on it. Get out there, make those connections and contacts. Even myself, when I go out for dinner, I always go on my Facebook page, where should I go for dinner tonight? And I listen to my friends. They tell me where to go. It's crazy, but it makes sense. Get out there, make connections, make contacts, and make your business grow to where you want it to be.
Well, that's a perfect lead-in for us to mention before we close out here. And we didn't even plan this. You know, this is exactly what Community Wellness Day teaches. It gives you the turnkey process of how to go out there, what you say to people, and a way to build relationships that isn't always about your business. Some people meet with a little resistance depending upon your business, but we teach you how to go out there, build these relationships, get people to like you, get people to trust you, and it's not about your for-profit business. So you get that chance to build that relationship. Not everybody, you know, has that experience all the time when they're out there. So it's a great umbrella to build your business and build your credibility in the community. So reach out. Let us show you how we can help you achieve your business goals. We're going to tie it up here. I want to thank the Hurricane, Steve the Hurricane, for being here today. Always. So you know, you'll definitely be seeing more of him on. And I think Dr. Allen's gonna give us a slide where people can reach Steve if they're interested in his services, and I'm sure in some time down the road we'll have him back on another topic. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Allen to close us out.
Okay, I'll give you Steve contact information as soon as I'm done with the giving our sponsors their due. Today's show, Building Your Wellness Brand Within Your Community, has been brought to you by Epic Consulting, making sure your electronic presence is all it needs to be. Community Wellness Day, every great opportunity begins with the first step. Take that step with Community Wellness Day, the system, the official marketing program of healthcare professionals everywhere. The VIP app, the only application that allows you to bring your live hangouts just like this one to the iPhone, iPad, tablets, and desktop of all those people that are following you. And again, our just released program Google Plus in only 10 minutes. Visit tinyurl.com/Google in 10. It's literally a step-by-step program that'll get you up and running doing your own live Hangouts literally in minutes. And let me give you Steve's information. Here it is. Hurricane Marketing Enterprises, 1-877-THE-EXPERT, SteveTheHurricane.com. On behalf of myself, Dr. Alan Weinstein, our great guest, Steve the Hurricane, and Dr. Randi Ross, we'll look forward to speaking with you soon. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.